you. Good evening. I was told there'd be snow, but apparently I was wrong. There he was, up on the wall in the baby department at Target, larger than life, our 6-month-old, chubby-cheeked baby boy. He was wearing Carter's, a blue onesie adorned with brown teddy bears, and he was totally rocking that look. He was leaning into the camera, had a big smile on his face. He was a natural. This was our son's first gig in his brief modeling career, and we as his parents were understandably proud and elated. And I was amazed because I never thought that I would be a mom. I never thought I'd be a parent. It wasn't that I didn't like kids or I didn't want to be a parent. It's just kind of like being an Olympic gymnast. It just didn't really seem within the realm of possibility. And then I met Diane, and we started to build a life together. And I knew that Diane wanted kids. I think she's a big kid herself, so I think she just really wanted to make sure she had some built-in playmates around the house. And, you know, I was all in. If Diane wanted kids, I was all in to have kids. And I'm the pragmatic one of the two of us. And so Diane would do off on a whim adventures, and I would be the one with the map to try to get us there and get us back. But I could come up with a long list of reasons why this was going to be difficult, not the least of which we were two women, so we had a lot of X's and a lack of Y's. But, you know, I was in, and I knew that I loved Diane. So I knew that her happiness would be my happiness, so I was all in with this. And we did it. We pulled it off. We found a known donor, and we used what I'll call the at-home turkey baster method. And we managed to get pregnant on the first try. Yeah, thank you. And 9 months later, our beautiful baby boy Ryan arrived. And he was perfect. He was and I know every parent thinks that their child is the most perfect, you know, smart, wonderful, awesome baby ever born on the face of the earth, and ours was. And he was chill, he was totally chill, right? He was such a mellow baby, and he'd wake up in the morning in his crib, and he would just kind of chill there until we came and picked him up, and he never really threw tantrums. You know, he never made any unreasonable requests. I mean, sure, you know, he wanted to be warm, and he wanted to be dry, and he wanted to be safe, and, you know, he got cranky when he got hungry, but don't we all? And he was just a great baby, and we discovered at age 2 that he was really good at shapes. We got him this wooden box, you know, and on each side it had different holes, and you had to find the corresponding block to put in the right opening. And you know, this wasn't just, you know, circles, triangles, squares. Those are for novices. This one had like diamonds and stars and octagons and pentagons and all the gons and rhomboids and rhombus, and he loved that toy. He mastered that toy. We also discovered that he was good at sorting, and so we could take the utensil drawer, put it on the ground, and he would empty the knives, forks, and spoons out of the dishwasher. Now, just the butter knives, okay? Because, yes, we were first-time parents, but even we knew a toddler should not be handling the steak knives, okay? When he was about 2.5, he was at the pediatrician on just a checkup, and he'd been kind of late to hit his milestones, late to crawl, late to walk, and at 2.5, he had some words, but he wasn't really putting together sentences, and so she suggested that we go see a speech therapist, and she wasn't worried. Boys tend to talk later than girls. We weren't worried. I mean, he had 2 moms. He could barely get a word in edgewise. So off we went to the speech therapist, and I remember that day. I remember it was this warm, beautiful fall day. You know, it had that deep blue sky, and the leaves are coming down off the trees, and they're making that sound as they blow across the parking lot, and they're crunching under our feet as we walk in, and I'm holding Ryan's hand, and the speech therapist's office had all these toys and books and puzzles, you know, for the kids, and it had a grown-up chair and a desk in one corner, and then a little table and chairs in the other corner, which is where I was sitting, like scrunched down. And She starts asking me questions, and meanwhile, Ryan's just wandering around, and he's checking out everything and pretty much ignoring us. And so she's asking me, like, were there any complications with his birth? And when did he crawl? And when did he walk? And when did he talk? And how many words do you think he has? And I'm starting to feel like I'm taking a test. You know, I've got like butterflies in my stomach. I've got sweaty palms, and I feel like I'm taking a really big test in a really teeny tiny chair. And I'm nervous, and then she looks at Ryan, and then she looks back at me, and she says, "Does he do that hand flapping thing very often?" And I said, well, yeah, when he's excited. And Ryan had just discovered an airplane, and he was in full hand flap mode because he's very excited about airplanes. And I said, yeah, he does that when he's excited, like now. And finally she said, I think he needs to be seen by a developmental pediatrician. And that is when I knew. I don't even know what I knew, but I knew. When I had been in college, I had volunteered at a camp for developmentally disabled kids. And I had tried really hard not to see how some of Ryan's quirky behaviors mimicked the campers, as I remembered. And she went on talking, yada, 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 lots of acronyms and different things, and I really wasn't hearing her at this point. I felt like I was having an out-of-body experience, and I felt like I was up above. You know, I was looking down on it, and I could see Ryan, and I could see her, and I could see the big desk and the little table and chairs, and I could see that I really did look ridiculous in that little chair. And we left the office, and we walked out into that same beautiful fall day, same sky, same leaves. I'm holding onto the same boy's hand, only it feels like it's a completely different boy, as if the one I walked in with has been swapped out for a different version. And I called Diane, and she said, well, you know, that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong. And I really wanted to think like Diane. I really did, but my experience was just telling me something different. We had to go to Children's Hospital in Oakland for the appointment, and the developmental pediatrician's office was a lot like the speech therapist. You know, it had toys and books and a big chair and table and a small chairs and tables. And she asked me some of those same questions, and then she sat down with Ryan, and she looked at a picture book, and she would say, Ryan, where's the truck? And he could point to the truck. And then she'd point to another picture and say, Ryan, what's this? And he couldn't say it's a car, but if you said, where's the car? You know, he could point to the car, but he couldn't say it. And then she did some physical tests, had him walk up and down stairs and different things. And, you know, all the while I'm looking at this and I'm just willing him to not flap his hands, to not walk on his toes, you know, to speak. Because now I'm seeing all the things I never wanted to see. About a week later, we got a big report back, and the takeaway was Ryan was diagnosed with autism. And it was devastating. You know, I think, you know, more for me than Diane, not that she cared any less. She was just able to frame it much better than I. She was one to take action, and how are we going to take care of this and solve this and fix this? And I knew this wasn't something that was going to be solved or fixed. I knew that we had taken a detour and we were now on a different path, and maybe we could smooth out the path, but we weren't going to get back, you know, on the original path. You know, something had fundamentally changed. And I felt like I was going through the stages of grief. You know, I was mad, I was angry, I was sad, and I felt like something had been taken away from me, and I felt really horrible that I felt that way. And I thought, is it because I'm not the birth mom? Why am I feeling this way? Why am I feeling, you know, so bad about this? And, you know, there's no cure for autism. There's therapies, of course. There are things that you can do, but there's no out-and-out cure. And so it seemed that all the things that I had assumed about Ryan now were being called into question. Like, would I ever have a conversation with my son? Would he talk? Would he read? Would he write? Would he graduate from high school? Would he get a driver's license? Would he have friends? Would he even want friends? Would he get married? Would he go to college? Would the world be kind to him? I had a coworker who used to, when she wanted to make a derogatory comment about somebody, she'd call him short bus. And I never got that. And I finally said, why do you call people short bus? And she said, you know, short bus. That's what the special ed kids, the retards ride, the short bus. And I never liked that joke in the first place, but now I really didn't like it because chances are I had a son who was going to be riding the short bus. Well, about a month after Ryan's diagnosis, I take his younger brother, Jack. Yeah, we'd had another one. Look at us smug lesbians producing children. And in fact, at that moment, Diana's pregnant with our third. I discovered I had a unique gift for impregnating women. But Jack, he's 18 months old, and he's got a cough, and he's got a fever, as he often did. And so we go off to the pediatrician, and she prescribes the obligatory, gallon jug of amoxicillin for him, and does a breathing treatment. And then she's looking at his file, and then she looks at me, and she said, I really think we need to test him for cystic fibrosis. Exactly. And I looked at her. I think my face must have said it all. I was like, what the hell? Do you not remember a month ago? Autism? Ryan? And she said, I don't think he has it, but we really need to test and we need to be sure. So back to Children's Hospital in Oakland, this time with Jack. And the test for cystic fibrosis, it's not a painful test, thank goodness. It's called the sweat chloride test. And so they put something on Jack's little arm to make it sweat, and then they put this like a spirally tube to collect the sweat. It's like a reverse IV, essentially. And then they wrap it all up, and you just have to go and wait for an hour to collect enough sweat. And so we're sitting in the cafeteria, and Jack is, he's eating his Cheerios one at a time, very methodically, deciding if it's mouth-worthy or floor-worthy. And I'm trying to just be present. I'm trying to just be in the moment and be with Jack and not go down the rabbit holes. But I can't escape the irony that Ryan, while physically healthy, has just been diagnosed with a developmental disability. And Jack, neurotypical, chatting up a storm, he might have a chronic, life-shortening illness. It takes about 10 days to get, that we had to wait for the results. And during that time, I was just like fixated on the what if he has it, and going down assorted, rabbit holes. And my Catholic guilt starts to kick in, Is this like God's punishment, the hubris of two women having all these kids? And I know that's not how it worked. I know in my heart that is not how it works, right? But unfortunately, I had moved out of my heart and had taken permanent residence in my swirling, obsessive rabbit hole brain at this particular moment. And the weird thing, so the way my brain works is, a little factoid of knowledge will get lodged in there, and then maybe, 10 years later, it'll just pop out, right? Unbeknownst to me, it'll just, whoop, there it is. And in this case, the thing that popped out for me was Schrodinger's cat. Okay, so I'm not real clear on it, right? It has to do with quantum physics, but basically, there's a box, and it's in a cat. There's a cat in the box, and there's something in the box that can kill the cat, right? And you seal it up, and until you open the box, you don't know if the cat is dead or if it's alive. So technically, it's both dead and alive, and that is how I felt about Jack. I felt he was both healthy and not healthy at the same time, and we weren't going to know the answer until we opened up the test result box. And when the phone rang, finally, and I see that it's the doctor's office, and I hesitate before I pick it up, because if it's positive, I just want to have a few more seconds of not knowing. So I finally answer the phone, and the test is negative. Jack does not have cystic fibrosis. And I was so relieved. And I picked him up and I squeezed him tight, hugged him until he got squirmed out of my arms, and slid down my leg and scampered off. And I looked over and I can see Ryan, and he's over and he's in the corner and he's just quiet and he's chill and he's lining up his trains and he's just being Ryan. And at that moment, I felt this monumental shift inside me. And the thing that popped into my brain at that moment was the pivotal part of When the Grinch Stole Christmas. And it's the part where he finally gets the true meaning of Christmas. And his heart grows 3 times, boom, boom, boom. And he finds the strength of 10 Grinches plus 2. And in that moment, I got it. I got that Ryan was the same beautiful, wonderful, perfect baby he had always been. He was the same chill, shape-sorting, hand-flapping, wonderful child that I fell in love with the moment that I saw him. And the autism had been the worst thing ever until it wasn't. Thank you.
Santa Sofia!